Howdy everybody, this is Omar, your Audio Amigo, back with another Audio Amigo review for y'all. Today we're going to be looking at something a bit different. This is the Ear Acoustics SPA High-End Limited Edition Type 1, or as I'll be calling it for the rest of the review, the SPA Limited. This is the top tier model in Ear Acoustics single DD Silver Angel range, coming in at a whopping $430 US. This particular one features a Year of the Snake design and silver-plated textured shells, as well as a sort of rhinestone silver relief on here. These are more jewelry, I think, than high-end IEMs, but does the sound match the looks? Well, let's figure that out. As usual, we have my disclaimer. These were sent to me by Ear Acoustics themselves for review. I'm not being paid for this video, but because I could turn around and sell these if I wanted to, I've gone ahead and activated the paid promotion feature here on YouTube. I do these disclaimers because I believe in full transparency when there's potential bias besides my own personal taste at play. Thank you so much to Ear Acoustics for sending me this set, and thank you all for your continued support. So when it comes to their unboxing experience, Ear Acoustics refers to this as their sort of gift box packaging, and I agree. It's a taller, more premium version of the unboxing experience on the TFZ Athena, which makes sense. Ear Acoustics is a sub-brand or a sister brand of TFZ. In addition to the IEMs and the cable, inside the box you will find this gray sort of patterned leather case. You will find two cards with ear tips, we'll talk about in a second. You will find a sort of bracelet with a similar sort of rhinestone pattern and logo as the IEMs themselves, and you will find a nice Silver Angel branded leather cable tie for the cable. The ear tips are in wide bore and standard bore varieties, and as I mentioned, come on these cards. The case is pretty nice textured leather. The inside is very, very soft, so you won't mess up that beautiful silver finish on the IEMs. The stitching is relatively high quality. There's a bit of a gap there in some of mine, but you can just tell that this is made in a certain way. The puck is relatively crush resistant. It should protect your IEMs just fine if it's at the bottom of a backpack or something. Yeah. In all honesty, for 430 bucks, I would say that this is a slightly disappointing set of gifts in this box. I would personally have liked IEM booties to protect those shells. I've seen cheaper IEMs come with modular cables, premium ear tip options, cleaning cloths, cleaning brushes, shirt clips, all that sort of thing. Would have been nice to have in this sort of gift box that they have, especially when you're courting the more premium audience. Having this level of accessories on a $400+ IEM, little bit of a head scratcher, if I'm honest. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at that cable. This cable I actually quite like. It reminds me of a sort of version of the white whale or the manta cable that comes on some of High Senior's IEMs. It's the same sort of two-wire silvery twist. It's very nice. All of the hardware, as you can see here, matches quite nicely. It's all this sort of polished metal. The cable doesn't exhibit any memory. It doesn't feel super rubbery. It just behaves. It's very nice. The 3.5mm connector is the only thing that's branded. You get that Silver Angel branding right there. The Y-split is sort of a featureless metal cylinder, but it does the job. The chin slider, as you can see, not only sits flush, but it has a decent amount of resistance when it's sliding over the cables, which means it'll stay put if you're sort of walking around or anything, especially once you put tension on it, so it works rather well. The ear hooks are sort of basic metal, but with very clearly visible stereo rings on them. The ear hooks are also quite comfortable. They don't have that crinkly sound that some of them tend to have. Honestly, for a $430 IEM, I think this is an appropriate cable. It feels very luxurious. Y'all know I'm going to say I wish it was modular, but I can't have everything. I think that this cable is appropriate for the IEM it's attached to. I think it goes rather well with it. All right, now let's have a look at the jewelry pieces themselves. So these are full CNC aluminum lower shells here, with what looks like is like a silver leaf that has been applied to it by hand. In reality, I believe this is a silver electroplated finish. There's not a lot of information on their website, but it does really look like a silver leaf. I assume it took a lot of work to get this design on here, hence the price. These nozzles are machined as part of the lower shells and feature sort of snowflake-shaped filters on them. Those are quite nice. There is a front vent right there. You can see it. It's still a bit difficult to see because of the construction, but there is a front vent there, and there's a rather large rear vent here using the same sort of filter that the nozzles use. I didn't experience any driver flex or pressure buildup issues with these. Those vents are clearly doing their job. The faceplates here are not metal, but they are inlaid resin, and you can see sort of individual like rhinestones or crystals or something in the resin, along with a silver relief of a snake. The other one has the Ear Acoustics logo on them. Yeah, these are pretty well built. I can't see any real weaknesses in the build quality of these. Maybe these resin faceplates will pop off, but they should stay nice and solid. I personally will be sticking these in some IEM booties to avoid scratches. So let's take a little peek at what's hiding beneath the silver here. The SPA Limited is powered by the same Ear Acoustics 11.4mm gold titanium diaphragm dynamic driver as the rest of the SPA high-end line. My experience with these has been that they are extremely easy to drive, so that holds true in their marketing materials. They say easy to drive, and I agree. There's really no need to run out and buy a dongle or an amp for these, especially since the sound doesn't really change when you expose these to impedance adapters or higher output impedance sources. Those shells, thanks to the only very thin layer of silver on the outside, are relatively lightweight for metal shelled IEMs, and although the cable is appropriately weighty, it doesn't completely destroy the portability of the IEM in terms of overall package weight. The nozzles are a little bit narrower than average, but it's not so much that it's super noticeable. It does have a nice lip on it. As you saw, it should hold on to the tips fairly well. Overall, as far as the specs sheets goes, I think it would say this is a very typical sort of single DD set. Let's move on to the cool wall. I'm going to come right out and say that I am not the target audience for this IEM. As I've been saying, these look and feel more like jewelry to me than they do IEMs, and as someone who doesn't really wear jewelry, I don't think I can accurately assess the quality or beauty of these. Personally, I think that they come across a little bit garish or gaudy, and I just don't ever see myself wearing these in public. They're a little bit too Liberace for me. I'm going to be sticking these in uncool because I genuinely believe if I ever wore these in public, they would make me look uncool. Since we're evaluating jewelry, I'm expecting an interesting sort of set of opinions from the Council of Ladies, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Things appear to be split pretty evenly. We have 2 votes for not pretty, 1 meh, and 2 pretties, which I think is fairly normal. Tastes in jewelry tend to vary from person to person. As far as compliments go, it looks like we have a 2 to 3 verdict against giving them out. The 2 ladies who like these must really like them. Let's confirm that by jumping into their thoughts and find out which ladies really liked these, which ones are sort of afraid of snakes, and which ones think that these actually look rather cheap. These varied opinions make a lot of sense to me. I know all 5 of these ladies personally, and I will tell you that their tastes in jewelry vary quite a bit, so these sort of all over the place comments don't really surprise me at all. The design of the SPA Limited in terms of comfort is sort of a semi-customish shape. You've got a bit of a comfort wing here, you've got an indentation there, you've got a bulge there to help it sit in your ear, and you've got a little bit of a indent here with the nozzle sort of coming out to one side. This was no problem for me. I was able to wear these for 5 to 6 hour listening sessions with really no issues or discomfort. The nozzles took my usual Spinfit W1 ear tips perfectly. No issues for me whatsoever. My wife ended up giving these a kind of confused technical pass. She expected to fail these, but she actually was able to form and maintain a seal relatively easily. And these big shells managed to fit in her ears. I think this comfort wing here is designed in such a way that it actually worked for her as a comfort wing. It's one of the only examples of semi-custom shells that actually fit her ears. So bearing that in mind, I will say that my usual advice for semi-custom shells is going to ring true here. Try them before you buy them. You'll never know if they're actually going to fit you or cause discomfort. We'll go ahead and get into the sound here, starting off with the bass. I think it's very well represented here on the SPA Limited Edition. The sub bass rumbles well, the mid bass is nice and punchy. Mosca's Euphoria has a nice bouncy tonality to it. The bass hits here have great texture to them, and the whole track felt appropriately thumpy with really nice mid-bass slam. Bass guitars and kick drums were also very well represented. The iconic bass line in Pink Floyd's Money had great finger texture to the strings. The rumble and sort of buzzing on the strings was present and clearly audible. Even once the rest of the track got going, I didn't lose the bass guitar in the track in the replay at all. Very, very nice replay. The bass presentation overall is warm and well represented. If I was nitpicking, and at $400 I really have to, I wish that the sub bass rumble was a little bit nicer. I wish it was more in line with the mid bass. This feels a bit mid bass heavy to me, but overall I would say it's a very satisfying bass presentation. The boosted mid bass has warmed up the lower mids here a little bit, but I find it's in that really sort of rich, pleasant way that y'all know that I can prefer. Cream's White Room sounded honestly really great. You get that bass guitar and the kick drum at the bottom with the guitars, vocals, and drums all layered nicely above them in the replay. The track sounded clear, warm, and quite nice with no real masking of one instrument over the other going on. The female vocal presentation here is maybe a little bit further back than I typically prefer, but they don't come across as hidden or shy or muted to me, just a little more recessed. Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun has her vocals sounding tonally correct and in line with the rest of the mix. They don't rise above the keyboards or the guitars like they can in a more vocal-focused set, but this presentation isn't lacking to me, just not as emphasized as I can prefer with some female vocalists. The mid-range is a little warmed over, but it doesn't affect things in an overly tonal way, and I don't think it's muddy or unpleasant. And yeah, while female vocals might be a little further back than I prefer, they're still quite nice. The upper mids and treble on the SPA Limited match the bass in that they're boosted, but not in a way that completely steals the spotlight. Harmonics on female vocals have enough energy that they elevate the vocals a bit and add nice depth to the sound. Garnadelia's Error had Maria's vocals sounding airy and clean. The harmonics were very present without sounding fatiguing to me. The S and the T sounds in her voice have just a right amount of sharpness to them to make them have impact, but without, cutting into your eardrums. The percussion harmonics were interesting in that they also have good energy, but the presentation is a little more subdued than I was expecting. Harry Belafonte's Jump in the Line is mastered quite hot. Those Caribbean percussions with the horns and the drums and the shakers can get very fatiguing in brighter sets with a lot of air, and that's not really the case here. The claps, the horns, the shakers, all the harmonics they throw off have really nice sparkle to them. The decay might be a little bit quick for my taste with some of the horns and the cymbals, but it's still overall quite nice. The tonality is a little two-dimensional, if you get my drift. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, as I think that this specific track can be a little bit sharp. This is a safer treble presentation for sure than I was expecting. It's got good sparkle, but it's not overwhelmingly bright. A little bit less air as well, but not in a bad way. The single DD here on the SPA Limited I think is of good quality. The dark bass drum and the conga drums at the beginning of the Egg Travels from the Dinosaur soundtrack, they all have really great texture to them. You can hear like almost a wood texture if you can. You can hear the cadence of the different hits, the way the hand strikes the skin. Even when the rest of the orchestra comes in, you never lose the presence of the drums in the bottom end. But I would expect that sort of performance from a oversized dynamic driver like this. The SPA Limited did do pretty well in my standard Waltz for Debbie test. It did really well with a lot of the glasses and sort of small tinking moments, but I did miss out on some of the background conversation. I did hear a decent amount of them, just not as many as I would have hoped. The SPA Limited did about as well as I was expecting here, honestly. In terms of technicalities, compared to the rest of the sort of single dynamic driver sets that I've tried, it's right in line with things like the Fermat, the Kadenz, and the Ukimi. The stereo separation and Perceive 3 soundstage on the SPA Limited is a pretty good surprise, honestly. Painted Back by the Rolling Stones sounded separated. The instruments in each ear were distant until they were sort of united by the vocals and the other things happening in the sort of center of the sound image. Really great replay here, honestly. No closed-in sense to the sound. The Perceive 3D soundstage on this set was, again, a nice surprise. Logo Ti Pate from the Moana soundtrack is a deceptively soundstagey track. You get different drums, guitars, and vocals in sort of different areas of the sound coming from different directions, and the imaging on the SPA Limited is nice enough that I could sort of pick out what was where. And I don't think this holds back well-mastered tracks at all, and it does a great job with overall staging. Compared to the rest of the single DDs in the $200 range, I would say it's equal to or in line with all the other ones I've tested, except for the EA1000, which has that passive radiator doing some special soundstagey things, but overall, still excellent performer here. In terms of overall tuning then, the SPA Limited Edition comes off to me as a warm, sort of relaxed V-shaped tuning. Has nice sub-bass rumble and enough air to make things feel sort of balanced out. Relaxing, bassy single DD sets like this are kind of a rarity once you cross above $200. with most sets taking the sort of more detailed bright V-shape or neutral approach to sound. That said, I've rounded up what I think are some of the best of what I have heard for comparison. We'll start off with what will be the most affordable set on the table today. This is the Dunu Kima 2, priced at $120 US. The Kima 2 is also what I would call a sort of warm, relaxing single dynamic driver set, but its energy is focused differently compared to the SPA Limited, which is a bit more V-shaped to me. The Kima 2 comes across as more mid-range focused. The lower mids are richer and warmer, the mid-bass has a bit more slam, and the vocals are controlled but still well executed. The SPA Limited, on the other hand, is all about that sub-bass rumble and a bit more brightness in terms of instrument harmonics, with the lower mids and female vocals slightly recessed compared to the Kima. That said, they still are both sort of tonally similar. I would say if you liked the Kima 2 and you want a sort of fashion statement with a similar-ish sound, this is an option. At the same time, if you want a warm, relaxing DD, you don't need to spend $400. The Kima's there for you at $120. Next, we come to the Meze Alba, priced at $160 US. Just want to say real quick, this is my set, not the one that Apos sent me to loan. That one went back to them. After that, I went and found this one for sale. It seemed to be popular. I thought I could use it in comparisons like this. Compared to the SPA Limited, the Alba has more of that sub-bass energy, but it also has extra airiness and a more vocal-forward nature to female vocals, and that makes the SPA Limited come across as the warmer, darker-sounding set by comparison. I was talking earlier about how you don't really see this tuning too much. You tend to see more balanced, like brighter, more neutral things. The Alba is a representative of that. In my review of this, I said it was sort of in between the Kima and the sort of traditional $200 sets. But even compared to this is still warmer. So I would say the tonality here is closer to the Kima than it is to the Alba, but the Alba is still sort of a halfway step between the SPA and the more traditional, like $200 single DD tonality. Next up, another IEM that I had to buy after the original went off to Apos. It's the Moondrop Kadenz, priced at $220 US. In my comparison listening, the Kadenz came off to me as a less V-shaped, neutral, more vocal-focused version of the SPA Limited here. This has a more neutral bass presentation, more neutral lower mids, as well as more forward vocals. The treble generally feels brighter on the SPA Limited, but the Kadenz has that extra airiness that I was, feeling like I was missing on here. If you've got female vocals by the truckload, then Kadenz is still probably the one that you'll want. If, however, you love your EDM, your rap, your hip-hop, you've got a more varied library, SPA Limited with its punchier mid-bass might be a better choice. Finally, we come to the sort of single DD Soundstage king, the Simgot EA1000 Fermat, priced at $220 US. The bass presentation on the Fermat is actually very similar to the SPA Limited here. But thanks to a little bit of extra energy in that bass, plus the fact that the vocals here are a little bit further back than they are on the Fermat, the SPA Limited comes across warmer to my ears by comparison. This doesn't have the same vocal magic or soundstage wizardry that the Fermat has, and again, by comparison, it is lacking a bit in that sort of airiness department, but the way that the SPA Limited here balances the treble energy with its more punchy bass makes this the more fun and engaging listen, whereas the Fermat is the more analytical, revealing, soundstagey, like critical listening set here. All right, so of everything on the table here, the SPA Limited is probably the most fun with bass-heavy music, just by the nature of its tuning. It's a even warmer tilted version of the Kima 2 with more recessed vocals. It's a more mid-bass focused Meze Alba with less air. It's a down-tilted Kadenz with more bass and de-emphasized vocals, or you can see it as a chilled-out Fermat with a bit more mid-bass punch. Either way, I feel like it's a generally unique style of DD tuning at the higher end of the price range, and honestly, I think it works rather well here. But enough comparisons, time to see where the Ear Acoustics SPA High-End Limited Edition Type 1, man that's a mouthful, will end up on the Audio Amigo Arbitrary rating scale. Right off the bat, I think we have to throw price and value out the window here. This set is clearly meant more as a sort of luxury fashion statement accessory IEM rather than a IEM with a value proposition attached to it. The fact that Ear Acoustics sells the exact same driver here in the rest of their SPA high-end lineup, just with different shells and I think slightly tweaked tuning, is proof of that. Speaking of those other units, if I can get those sent to me, specifically the cheapest one, the SPA high-end, I will do an addendum video and talk about it, since the packaging and accessories are, I think, identical to the limited edition here. That said, the SPA Limited in terms of sound doesn't fall short of any of the sort of $200 single DD sets that I've tried. Its tuning is sort of unique for a single DD in the sort of $200 and up range. It manages to pull off a bass-heavy sound signature while still retaining pretty good technical performance. Depending on your tastes, it could be rather good looking, and while the accessories are a bit disappointing for $400, the cable is honestly really nice and the included case is fashionable and functional. Mostly, however, I genuinely like the sound on these. They caught me a little bit off guard. The tuning really works well for this driver, and although these aren't the most technical sounding $400 set in the world or the most detailed, they work very well for a wide variety of genres. I'm going to be putting these in the but I like this tier, but I'm going to do that with a caveat. If I get the chance to try the $150 SPA high-end and the sound is roughly similar to this, I will put that here and I will knock this down a rung to good. From what I've seen, the tunings do vary a little in the models, especially in the sort of ear/pinagain region, so we'll have to see what those sound like. I'll ask them and see if they'll send me one. So, time for the recommendation section. Do I recommend the SPA Limited? Well, provided you can afford it, I do recommend it, but for a very specific crowd. First of all, you have to want a single DD at this price point. You have to say, no, I don't want a hybrid, I don't want a tribrid, I don't want those fancy all BA sets. I want a single DD because I love single DD tonality. You have to be ready to give up the technical performance and detailed retrieval that a set like, a hybrid tribrid can offer. And you have to really, really want a $400 single DD set. If you're one of those people, you also have to be okay with this sort of, let's just call it polarizing design and style, because honestly, I don't think it's going to be for everyone. If you are that person, though, I think you'll be pretty satisfied with this set. It's got a good all-around tuning, and it will work well for basically all genres. I think this will also work for sort of fashionistas or fashion victims or whatever we're calling them these days, who will want this set purely as an in-ear accessory to wear for parties. Fortunately for them, they're going to get something that sounds really good while also looking really good. But that's going to wrap this review up. It's a fashion statement that sounds pretty good, actually. As I said, I was pretty surprised by this one. I thought this was going to be all style and no substance, but I was very happy to be wrong here. Thanks again to Ear Acoustics for sending this out for review. As I mentioned earlier, I will be asking for the standard SPA high-end for review. If they send that out, keep an eye out for it at some point. But coming up next, we're going to be taking a look at Zeos's latest creation, his collab with Jazeer, the Defiant. If you're okay with mild spoilers, I personally think that that is Zeos's best collab to date. But that's going to do it for the moment. I want to say thank you all so much for watching and for all your continued support. Really hope you all enjoyed the video. This has been Omar with Audio Amigo Reviews, and I will catch y'all next time.